creation, and evolution. Now, we've already done the Bible versions and the cults and the rapture and eternal security took us 2 weeks. Now we're on creation, which I intended to take 2 weeks, but part 1 took 2 weeks, and part 2 has taken 2 weeks. So we've spent 4 weeks on creation. And by the way, we still have a few. We have a reading list here. I think how many's left there? 1 or 2? 2. And then we have lessons also, our lesson series. So if anybody wants those, Steve's got those for you. Anybody else want these? Okay. All right. Kent, good to see you.
I told you to surprise you. There you go.
All right. Very good. All right. So here's where we are. We did, these were the 2 parts we were supposed to do in 2 weeks. It took us 4. 2 weeks apiece. So we did 2 weeks on learning about the philosophy or religion of evolution. It takes more faith to believe in evolution than it does the Word of God. And now we're in part 2. We're examining some of the empirical science that refutes evolution. Okay? And so this is where we are. We're actually in part 2. Now here's the key point, which I want you to remember wherever it comes to the dates. Okay? This is a very important point. Never forget this. I was sitting in a barber shop, and an evolutionist brought up, well, actually, my barber, Grant, he's a Christian. And so he brought it up knowing what the other guy was, because I'm sitting in the chair. So the other guy starts to tell you Christians think the world's 6,000 years old. How do you prove that the world's 6,000 years old? And I said, I don't have to prove the world's 6,000 years old. He said, what? I said, no, all I got to prove is it's not as old as you guys say it is, and guess who loses? That's the key point. Don't ever forget that. As a creationist, I don't have to prove that the earth is only 6,000 to 12,000 years old. All I have to prove is that the universe, the solar system, the moon, and the earth cannot possibly be as old as they say it is. And guess which one loses that battle? So that's what we're going to do. If you and Christians compromise too much, okay, they grab the latest theory and they try to compromise. And so remember, if you accommodate evolutionists on their time frame, and the 3 most popular Christian compromises are the gap theory, trying to stick billions of years between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2, which you're not allowed to do grammatically or textually, but people still do it, or the day-age theory, where you try to say a day of creation equals billions of years, or the revelational day theory, like that guy said, where God just told the story in 7 days. And so that's what the 7 days are, is God's storytelling days. All of those are false. And they're all trying to accommodate the billions of years of evolutionists. But let me tell you something, when their theory goes over the cliff, if you've accommodated them, you're going over the cliff with them. The best thing you can do is what it says in the upper left-hand corner. You stand with the Word of God. In the end, you're the one that's going to be proven right. God is a powerful God. He took 6 days to create this world, but let me tell you something. If he wanted to, he could have done it in 1. He had a reason for doing it in 6. But he could have done it in 1. This is a powerful God. This isn't the God that started evolution, then sat there and folded his arms and waited billions of years for evolution to develop. Come on. What kind of God do you serve? You might as well be worshiping Zeus on Olympus as to be worshiping a God like that. Our God is a powerful God. Now, last week we viewed science that proves that these bodies, the universe, the sun, the moon, and the earth, are babies. They're not ancient. They're babies. They're very, very young. They were created with what's called an appearance of age. And we'll talk more about that when we get to it. Young comets, young planetary rings, and insufficient crater creep is what we dealt with. I wish we had time to deal with all of them. When I taught this class as a professor in Hawaii, we dealt with most or all of them. Okay? We don't have time. So I picked out just 3. And we dealt with, first of all, young comets, because this world, they don't refuel. They're limited in their size. They burn up when they get near a sun, and they're not being created anywhere else. And so the fact that there's tens of thousands of comets out there proves the universe is young, not old. Then we dealt with the fact that the rings of Saturn, Neptune, and the other planets are very young because they're decaying. And then we show a picture of Cassini satellite going by Saturn there, because Cassini is the one that led out the tests that find out how many micrometeorites were smashing into those rocks and pulverizing them. Just in my lifetime, the shape and color and width of the bands of Saturn's rings have changed, just in my lifetime, because they're being pulverized. If there was billions of years old, there would be no rings at all. Because as they're being pulverized, Saturn is sucking them like a vacuum cleaner right into the planet. And so there would be no rings at all if it was billions of years old. Then we dealt with the fact that the craters in our universe are very sharp. But if they were billions of years old, they'd be worn down to a nub, because they're being pulverized every day by millions of micrometeorites. But yet the rate they are very sharp, unlike this one in Arizona that's been beaten up by wind and rain and snow. There's nothing to beat them up in outer space except micrometeorites. And they will beat a crater rim down to dust. And the fact that they're still sharp says young, not old. Okay? Then we dealt with the sun. We only dealt with two things: Poynting Robertson, named after Drs. Poynting and Dr. Robertson, who discovered something about the sun, and then fuel extinction. We dealt first of all with Poynting Robertson. They learned that there's a huge dust cloud around the sun that's being sucked into the sun like a vacuum cleaner, but it's not building up on the edges. So if it's not building up on the edges, but it's being sucked into the sun, why is it still there if it's billions of years old? All of that dust should have already been sucked into the sun and gone. The fact that it's still there is proof that the sun is young. Then we dealt with the fact that our sun is shrinking. Our sun is shrinking at 8.3 miles. 8.3 miles per year. 120 feet per day. Which means in my lifetime, it has shrunk. Well, never mind, don't go into that. Okay? But where you see the dotted line, that used to be the surface of the sun, if we accept evolutionary uniformitarianism. Remember, everything continues at the same speed. So if our sun is shrinking at 8.3 miles per year, that was the size of our sun, where you see the dotted line, just 10 million years ago. And the surface temperature of the Earth would have been 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit. And remember, they said the dinosaurs died 65 million years ago. And that's just 10 million years ago. Again, proof that the universe is a lot younger. I don't have to prove that the Earth is 6 to 12,000 years. All I got to do is show this. They're the ones that are dying here. They're the ones that are failing. Now, we dealt with the moon. We only dealt with two things. We dealt with lunar recession, the fact that the moon's slipping away. And just like how holding a ball, a tether ball that's got a string, and you're swinging it over your head, and you're letting the string out of your hand. The moon is slipping away from us. If it was very ancient, the moon would be gone. It wouldn't even be in orbit around this Earth, because we know exactly how fast it's slipping away. Another thing is, because of all the Apollo missions, okay, they've set up collectors, dust collectors. And we call it dust on Earth. Actually, what the astronauts call it is regolith, because it's not beaten down by the wind, by rain, or the ocean, so it's very sharp. In fact, it was cutting into the astronaut suits when they were walking around on the moon. It's like little razor blades. And so that regolith is very shallow. It's less than a half an inch. There's less than a half an inch of regolith on the moon. Well, they know how fast it's building up because of the collectors. So then reverse the formula. If you know how fast it's building up, how old should the moon be with just that much dust? Less than 10,000 years old. But they want to tell you that the moon is 2 billion years old. Who's lying here? They're lying. They're filtering this out. They don't want you to know this. They don't want you to even think about it. Now, we dealt with those three. Now, today, the last one. Now we're going to continue, and today we're going to deal with the earth. These are the ones I want to get through today and deal with the earth. We're going to deal with 6 things about the earth. Population density, planetary heat deficit, magnetic field decay, carbon sealing, shower meteorites, and polonium radio halos. Sounds technical, it's not. Trust me, you need this kind of ammunition if you're going to talk to an evolutionist. Because what it does is it jerks the rug right out from underneath. Okay? Number 1, population density. Okay? Do you know that the earth did not hit the first billion people until the year 1900? That was when Earth hit a population of 1 billion. By 1970, by the time Richard Nixon was in office, the Earth had come up to 3 billion in 1970. Today, it's at 7, almost 7.5. So in 50 years, we've added another 4.5 billion people. There's a point where it becomes exponential, and the number of people multiplies so fast that there's no possible way this earth could be as old as they say it is. Because remember, they say that man evolved 1 to 2 million years ago. Okay? So, let's talk about this. So, we've added another 6 billion plus since 1900, okay? So, what's the problem then? What's the problem with that population? That's only enough population to account for less than 5,000 years of human existence. That's it. And let's be very conservative. They're very conservative in these formulas. Here's the variables of the formula. We're only going to allow 2 children per family. How many families do you know that have more than 2 children? Mine had more than 2 kids. Okay? And we're only going to allow 4 coexisting generations at the same time. Come on. Karen took a picture with 5 generations in Colorado once. Okay? And can you imagine during Adam's time? All right, let's get in here, kids. We got 13 generations we're going to take a photograph of, okay? And so, and this is how conservative the formula is for determining this. And we got to also calculate in wars, disease, and earth calamity. All that calculated with the population we have today, it still only accounts for less than 5,000 years of human existence. Well, okay, that brings up this question. It begs this question. What if humans did evolve 1 to 2 million years ago? What if they did? Okay? Remember, each one of those little blue guys there stands for 1 billion people. Okay? What would the population of Earth be like if man evolved 1 to 2 million years ago? We'll say 1. This is based on 1 million years ago, not 2. It'd be way worse if it was 2 million. We'll just say 1. Each one of those stands for 1 billion. That's 72 billion. And we look at that and say, wow, that's a lot of people. Yeah, but that's not even close to the truth. The truth is there would be 3,000 billion. That's equal to 3 trillion. 3 trillion people on this planet if man evolved 1 million years ago. That's how many people. Now, Missouri's population, if there was that many people, would be 8 billion, 100 million people. Okay? Which is 4 times greater than communist China, and that's just Missouri. Okay? So, welcome to Republic. Here's Willard. And let's not forget Ozark. And downtown Oliver. And good old Springfield. Home to over 1 billion people. Because both St. Louis and Kansas City are going to have about 3 billion apiece. That is if man evolved 1 million years ago. Now, number 2, hot planets. What is a hot planet? There are hot planets and hot moons out in the universe, okay? What do we mean? Well, here's what it means. Planets only have 2 ways to gain heat, just like you. They're no different than you. Your body has 98.6. Let's say that's supposed to be the average, okay? Well, your body only has two ways of getting heat, okay? And that is, you're either generating it from inside or you're receiving it from outside, okay? That's it. All right? Planets aren't any different. They're either getting heat from their solar partner or they're generating it from their core. If they don't have either of these, we call them a rock in space, okay? Now, what happens when there's an evolutionary dilemma that's called thermal deficit? Thermal deficit means that the Earth is losing more heat than it can possibly produce or receive every single day. That's called thermal deficit. It's also deficit spending in budgets. When you spend more than you have, that's what the planet's doing with heat. It's spending more than it can generate or it can receive from the sun. It's spending more every day to keep our atmosphere survivable. Okay? Now, you recognize this? Remember with Titanic? Was anybody there? I didn't think so. Okay. Doc was here, I'd say. You there? Okay. All right. Now, remember the people that went in the water? Did they live or did they die? They died. Do you know when salt is in water, it can get a lot colder without freezing? The water of the ocean, with the ice that was in it, was 28 degrees that day. Freezing is 32. Water can get a lot colder. That's why when you make ice cream, you put ice and put salt in the water. Because it won't freeze on the outside, but it'll sure freeze that ice cream. Okay? These people went. Now, if they died in that water, what's that called? There it is. I heard it somewhere. Say it again. Yeah. It's called hypothermia. Okay? That's because their body cannot generate enough heat and they're not receiving any heat from outside to put up with the cold that they're surrounded with. And so they die. Guess what happens to planets that lose more energy than they're able to absorb or produce? They die also. So, what does that mean? Fact number one, the Earth is categorized as a hot planet. Okay? Number two, the Earth is now losing more heat than it has available or can produce. Fact number three, the outer space temperature, just be about 150 miles into the sky, the temperature is 459.7 degrees below zero. That's absolute zero. It's actually just a shade off of absolute zero. So here's the conclusion. If the Earth is billions of years old, at the rate Earth is losing heat, we would be an ice-cold rock in space. Nobody would be alive at all. Okay? Magnetic field decay. Let's talk about this. Okay? What is that? It's a battery. Okay? Earth is nothing but a giant battery. Okay? It's surrounded by a powerful but deteriorating EMF. EMF stands for electromagnetic field. Okay? The Earth is surrounded by an electromagnetic field. This is the ideal picture of what it looks like. It goes from pole to pole. It comes in layers. The stronger layers are on the outside. The weaker layers are on the inside. And it's surrounded by it. And what it does is it protects us. Like, for instance, when the sun shoots out giant solar flares and stuff like that, it may affect our satellites, but the only reason you're not dead is because the Earth is protected by an EMF. Now, cancers are going up. That's because our EMF is dying on this planet. That's why skin cancer is so dangerous. Because our EMF is dying on this planet. Okay? Now, what's the problem? Our electric battery, our Earth battery is dying. And the thing is, they know exactly how fast it's dying. The half-life, this isn't Christians doing this. This is creation or evolutionists. This is secularists. This is just good science. They know the half-life of Earth's magnetic field is 1,400 years. In other words, every 1,400 years, it is half as strong as it was 1,400 years ago. It's dying at that speed. All right, now, what means what? Okay, well, let's illustrate it. Let's just say, arbitrarily, that today our electromagnetic field is, we'll use this as an abstract, that's how powerful our EMF on our planet is today. Okay? Now, if that's today, let's go back, how many years? 1,400 years. In other words, about the same time that the Western Orthodox and Eastern Orthodox, Western Orthodox Church took on the name Roman Catholic Church, Eastern Orthodox Church took on the name Greek Orthodox Church. About the time those two churches were splitting, okay, our electromagnetic field on this planet was twice as powerful as it is today. Well, let's do this. Let's go back another 1,400 years. Now, instead of 1,400 years ago, let's go back 2,800 years. It's 4 times as powerful as today. In other words, about the same time that Jonah was getting swallowed by the whale shark, okay? That's how powerful it was. 4 times what it is today. Okay? Now, let's do it again. Let's add how many years? 1,400 years. Do you realize the electromagnetic field was 8 times more powerful than it is today? 4,200 years ago. In other words, about the same time the Tower of Babel was being dealt with by God. 8 times more powerful then than it is today. Let's do it one more time. Let's add 1,400 more years. You realize the electromagnetic field at the time that Adam and Eve were bouncing their first great-grandchild on their knee was 16 times more powerful than it is today. Now you know why people are dying of cancer left and right. Our EMF is dying. We're no longer being protected from the sun and the deadly radiations of outer space. Not like they used to. So, this is the byproduct of a working battery. Come on, you guys know that. When a battery's working hard, just hold it. You can feel the heat. Okay? If the Earth's magnetic field was 16 times more powerful, guess what's happening on the Earth as well? You want to know why there were tropical trees, why there were palm trees in Antarctica? When the continent was one continent, while there was palm trees all over the world, it's because the entire world was a tropics. The entire world was Hawaii. And an EMF, if we were to add, now remember, we're only at 5,600 years ago. Let's add 1,400 more years and go back to 7,000 years ago. No, we can't. No human can survive. Because the heat would be so great nothing could live. 7,000 years ago. And they're going to tell us that the Earth is billions and billions of years old. No, I'm sorry. Now let's go to carbon sealing. The next proof I want to give you is about carbon sealing. This room, just take a look at this room. It has a specific volume. If you're a mathematician, if you know trigonometry, you can figure out exactly what the diameter of this room is, the height, the angles that are there. You need a little geometry, but you can calculate, and you will know exactly how many cubic yards of air there is in this room. It's an easy formula. You can do it. Well, it's not easy, but you can do it, okay? Guess what? They can do the same thing with the Earth. They know how thick our stratosphere is, or our atmosphere, and they know how the diameter of our planet. So all they have to do is do the math on a larger scale, and they know exactly how many cubic yards of air, or meters, if you prefer, of air there are on this planet. They know. So, how much carbon can be in that mix before nothing can live? Let's talk about that for a second. That number of the maximum amount of carbon that can be in the atmosphere is known as carbon sealing. In other words, when you hit that, no oxygen-breathing thing can live anymore. Okay? Now, trees can, because they love carbon. You exhale, they inhale. They love that. And they exhale oxygen. It's a neat little symbiotic relationship, isn't it? So, what happens is, as the atmosphere becomes saturated with carbon, it gets less and less able to support life. Okay? Now, here's some facts you need to understand. These are known facts. These are in the books that I gave to you. This is not secrets. They know this stuff. Fact number one, our atmosphere can only hold a limited amount of carbon to sustain life. They're using it right now to try and take away your car. They're using it right now to do other things they shouldn't be doing. Because it isn't humans' fault. But we'll get to that in a moment. Here's fact number two. This high threshold of carbon is referred to as scientists by as carbon ceiling. Saturation point, okay? So, at default rates, default, in other words, the trees are exhaling oxygen, inhaling, so we can do a little balance, a symbiotic formula there, and we can calculate this all out. How long is it going to take for Earth to reach a saturation point? Okay, well, that saturation point they already know for volume of this atmosphere is 35,000 years. Are you doing the math in your head? Remember that number. In 35,000 years, at default rates, the Earth's atmosphere will be saturated with carbon. Okay? Now, they're able to do current atmospheric tests with these kind of things. They send atmospheric balloons up there. They test, they know exactly how much carbon is in the atmosphere. They test up there because it goes up high. And so they go, and remember, this is a closed system. It doesn't sneak out into the atmosphere or in outer space. It's a closed system. It has a ceiling. It ain't going nowhere. Okay, so they're able to do that. Here's fact number 4. By current atmospheric measures, they verified the Earth is currently at 34 to 35% of saturation. Now, what formula should you set up in your brain? What is 34% of 35,000 years? Here's the obvious conclusion. Earth's atmospheric age is 34% of 35,000 years, or in other words, less than 12,000 years old. And they know it. But they don't want to talk about this science. That's why 2 state professors came up to me after I gave this seminar in American Samoa and said, how come we were never taught this stuff? I said, I don't know, guys, but it's out there. Here's the book list. Look it up for yourself. And these are vetted scientists. These aren't Christians just talking off the top of their head, okay? These are vetted scientists. This information's out there. They just don't want to talk about it because it takes them where they don't want to go. What's causing all the carbon in our atmosphere that's building up? What's doing that? Okay, where is it originating? It's our car. We got to take the car away. It's coal. We got to shut down West Virginia and Montana. It's our factories. They're doing it. There's too many airplanes. Or maybe it's something else. AOC is trying to get rid of cows. Well, stick a couple of them in my freezer, please. You know, we may have something to do with those other things which add a minuscule amount, but the truth is, do you know that in the last 5 years there have been dozens of huge volcanoes go off and we have no control over those? Do you know how much carbon they pump in the atmosphere? Mount Pinatubo, when it went off in the Philippine Islands, it pumped more carbon into our atmosphere than all the factories men have ever built. No control. What about the forest fires? What about the 1 million acres that just burned in Canada? We have no control over that. You know how much carbon that's throwing into the atmosphere? So at default rates, the atmosphere of the Earth is only 12,000 years old, at the most. At the most. You want to know who the real culprit for carbon is? Right here. That's the real culprit. Okay? Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, Fresca. How many of you remember Tab? Okay, are we old enough to remember Tab? Okay, now, if you took and popped that open and took a big swallow, what would you feel in the back of your throat? A burning, wouldn't you? What's causing that? Carbonation. Carbonation. Okay? Now, what happens if you set that can on your desk all night long and get up the next morning and take a big swallow? What's What's no longer there? The carbonation is gone. Now in Hawaii, you might do like my son and pick up the can that you left on your dresser, which your mama told you you shouldn't do, and tip it up like that and find a big old cockroach trying to crawl into your mouth. Welcome to Hawaii. Okay? Cold, here's the science, cold liquids retain carbon. Warm liquids release carbon. All our ocean has to do is heat up 1 degree and it releases more carbon into Earth's atmosphere than all the fires, volcanoes, and factories there are. That's the driver right there of carbon in this world. Not your Chevy Nova, not your Honda Accord, okay? Now, next, shallow meteorites. Now remember, they say the Earth is 4.57 billion. Why 4.57? Because it makes them sound smart. They don't know. They haven't got a formula. There's no way they know. They're just guessing. They throw it out there because when we say 4.57, it sounds like, wow, they must have really calculated this. No, it just sounds smart. Let's talk about shallow meteorites. That meteorite I show a picture of right there is made of metal. And there are literally billions of them in outer space, and they pummel the Earth every day. Hundreds of thousands, millions of them hit the Earth every day. You never see them because they just go and they melt or they burn up in the atmosphere. Because now on a planet that has no atmosphere, they just hit with full force, like our moon. That's what destroys the craters. It turns them into nubs. Okay? Micrometers. Now, if the Earth, here's a logical question, if the Earth was truly billions of years old and all those layers, all those geological layers built up slowly over billions of years of time, is it not logical, this is a kindergarten question, is it illogical then we should be able to find these meteorites in every layer? Isn't that true? Okay, then why can't they? They're not, and they don't want to talk about it. They're actually only finding them in the top layer. Sometimes the second layer of the Earth because of the speed with which it hit. Only there. So what does that tell us? The Earth is a lot younger than we know. The Earth is a lot younger. And then here's the smoking gun of creation. This is the thing that tells us we know that God made this planet. Dr. Robert Gentry is a scientist. In 1977, he wrote an article for Scientific American. It's a professional platform that scientists submit articles to. And in Scientific American, he wrote an article about polonium radioactives because he knows that polonium is a dissolving radioactive element that disappears. It doesn't have a long lifespan. In fact, it lives less than 10 minutes. And then it's gone. You can't find it anywhere. Okay? They're called polonium radiohalos, and they look like this when you slice through a slice of granite across. They look like, the reason they're called halos is because as it deteriorates, rings go out, just like Saturn, and the rings keep going, and they're gone, and gone, and gone, and there's nothing. Polonium's gone. So Dr. Gentry got this idea, I wonder if I can find these in the granites of Earth. Okay? So he does. Everywhere you see a blue spot, he took granite samples. A lot of them, even in Antarctica, the Antarctic is not there, but he took several granite samples from there. And he lifted them right off the surface. Some of them, the deepest one he took was Kola, Norway. He took a granite sample that was 39,000 feet down. And he brought them up and he sliced them. And guess what he found in every granite sample he found? Polonium radiohalos. Now, what is a radiohalo? This is what happens, okay? This takes 10 minutes. I'm going to speed up the process for you, but here's what happens with polonium. Okay? Well, that's what it looks like when you slice a granite. Let me do this first. Okay? Alka-Seltzer is a good illustration. Let's suppose you want to freeze the bubbles that are in Alka-Seltzer. You know, you drop it in, bubble, 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 bubble. What if you want to freeze those right in the water? Can you just set it in your freezer? Will it work? No, because it doesn't freeze fast enough. You won't catch a single bubble. If you want to catch the bubbles in the liquid, what do you have to do? You have to flash freeze. Yes, it has to be instantaneous. And then the bubbles are right there. Same with polonium. Same exact thing with polonium. Okay? Polonium radionuclides result from dissolving radioactive polonium, which dissolves completely away in less than 10 minutes. So here's what it looks like. I'm speeding this up. This is what the polonium does. And it's gone. And it's gone. And Dr. Gentry still found it in granites all over the earth. If it has a short lifespan and he's still finding them in granites everywhere, what does that mean? Did this earth slow cool over 2 billion years old? No. Which means God made those granites. And not only did he make them, he hardened them in less than 10 minutes. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And he froze them solid. He hardened the granite solid in less than 10 minutes, or we wouldn't even find polonium in any of the rocks. Now, here's what we know from all the science we've looked at. They're all very young. The universe, the sun, the moon, the earth, all very young. And if they're young, evolution falls. Okay? And all the science I just showed you this morning, they all have one thing in common. Every bit of it is universally ignored by evolutionists. Completely ignored. They don't want to talk about it. It's not brought up at state universities. No kid comes out of a state university knowing this stuff. They avoid it like the plague, like tiptoeing through a minefield. They don't want them to know about this stuff at all. Now, why do they do that? Because, first of all, it produces, to quote Al Gore, an inconvenient truth. And the inconvenient truth is, there was a creator, and we are accountable to him. And they don't want to face that. And that's why they will jump on anything to get rid of God, because they don't want God in their life. So, you see, they call creationists closed-minded. You creationists, you're Christians, you're closed-minded. No, they're the ones that are closed-minded. They're the ones, if you're a teacher and you bring this stuff up in your public school classroom, they will fire you. They do not want this stuff taught to any kids at all. I always laugh at this joke, a guy was walking down the sidewalk one night, taking an evening stroll, and he saw a guy under a yard light going like this, looking all over. So he stopped and he said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, I dropped a $50 and I'm trying to find it." And he said, "Okay, well, I'll help you." So after they looked like this for about 20 minutes, finally the fellow that was out for his evening walk said, "Are you sure you dropped it here?" He said, "Oh, no, I didn't drop it here." We said, "Where'd you drop it?" "I dropped it out there in the dark." We said, "What are you looking here for?" He says, "Because this is where the light is." Now, we'd look at them and we'd say, "Are you a lunatic or something?" But yet that's what they're doing. The real evidence is out there, but they're here. They're looking at this. They're trying to manufacture something that doesn't exist. They know better, but they're looking where answers cannot be found. Well, why would a scientist intentionally ignore all the evidence I've just shown you and still dare to stand in front of a crowd and call himself a scientist? Because a true scientist is willing to look at all the evidence, even if it refutes or falsifies his viewpoint. The problem doesn't exist there. It's not in the power of the telescopes or the power of the microscopes. The real problem is there. It's in the heart of these people. They do not want God in their life. Ever. And they would rather blindly take a bunch of facts that are false. So finally, here's some common sense things as we close. Common sense is like deodorant for people who need to vote and never use it. Okay, here's a few additional concepts for us to ponder as we close. Number one, the big fairy tale. We told you about this already. We showed you this. If a frog became a handsome prince instantly with a kiss, we call that a what? Yeah, that's a fairy tale. But if instead of saying instantly, we say it took millions of years, now you get to call it science. Guess what? They're both fairy tales. Both of them. Then there's the appearance of age. God created the world already mature. Adam and Eve were full-grown adults. He didn't make little babies and say, "I'm not going to bottom feed you. You're going to have to crawl over that apple tree, and even without teeth, you're going to have to gum it." 5 seconds after God made Adam and breathed into him the breath of life, he probably looked like he was a 30-year-old already. And he's only 5 seconds old. Same with Eve. And the fruit trees, he didn't say, now Adam, that's called an apple tree. In about 7 years, it'll have some fruit on there you can eat. Till then, I guess you're just going to have to fast, okay? I'm sorry. No, he made the apple tree with fruit hanging on the branches. The thing looked like it was older than it was 5 seconds after he was done. That's called appearance and age. He did it with all those things. In other words, 5 seconds after God finished creation and said, behold, it is very good, everything he made looked older than it actually was. Same with the earth. Same with the solar system. Same with the moon. Jesus did the same thing when he was here with miracles. Remember when he turned water to wine? How long does it take grapes to mature? 18 months? Not for me, Jesus said. He gave it an appearance of age instantly. He did the same thing when he made bread. Remember when he fed the thousands? He did it instantly. How long does it take bread to grow? Wheat's got to grow in the field for 4 months. Then it's got to be harvested. Then it's got to be winnowed. Then it's got to be ground up. Then it's got to be baked. No, not to Jesus. Done. It had an appearance of age. What about when he went into the Nazareth synagogue and a guy had a shriveled up hand? Did he give him a little baby hand and say, Jesus said, don't worry, in about 18 years it'll be the regular size. Okay? No, he gave him a hand that looked just like the other one. And he did it instantly. He had an appearance of age 5 seconds after he did the miracle. That's how God works. Everything he creates has an appearance of age. Now let's talk about genetic material. You ever heard that there's only a 3% difference between the genes of a chimpanzee and the genes of a man? And so that proves right there that we're from common stock. We evolved to say, really? So, in other words, you need to understand that 3% makes a huge difference. Huge difference. See these three things? Clouds, watermelon, and jellyfish? Guess what? All three of them are 97% water. You think 3% doesn't make a difference? 3% makes a huge difference in what something's going to look like. Now, design recognition. If you saw this, or you were walking along the creek bed and you found these, would you conclude that they were fashioned by forces of nature, or would you be more inclined to infer they had a designer and a purpose? Even if you don't know who those guys are or why those arrowheads were made, you're smart enough to look at them and know those were made by someone with intelligence for a reason. Okay? Design, intelligence. We know these things. We're smart enough to do that. And now creation method. God used the system called rough to refine. Everybody uses it. If you're a creator, everybody uses it. Take a lumber guy that makes furniture. He starts out with a rough pile of wood, and by the time he's done, he's got these beautiful furniture. Same thing if you're a gem cutter. You start out with a hunk of rock like that, and by the time you're done, you got this gorgeous rock that Dale steals people. Money to sell. Okay, and then if you're an author, you start with this pile of whatever, at least that's the old people way. Okay, not the computers. But the old people way. And when you're done, you come up with a refined, beautiful book. Same thing was true of Michelangelo when he sculpted La Pietà, which shows Mary holding the dead body of Jesus. That came out of nothing but a block of granite. Sculptor, just like a gem cutter, just like a woodworker, starts from rough, and they go to refine. You know God did the same thing on creation? Remember I told you he could have done it one day, but he took 6? That's because he went from rough to refined. That's God's way. So on day 1, he was in the stratosphere. He was out there dealing with the sun, the moon, the stars, light. On day 2, he was in the atmosphere. On day 3, he was playing in the dirt. He said, let the oceans give forth land. And he saw the muddy land come up out of the water. Okay? Guess what he did on day 4? He went back into the stratosphere. From rough to refined. And he refined his creation. Guess what he did on day 5? He went back to the atmosphere and he filled it with clouds and birds. He refined what he did on day 2. And then on day 6, he was playing in the dirt again. Let us make man in our image and after our likeness. And he molded man from the clay. Playing in the mud. Yeah. Darwin made this statement. By the way, people don't realize the last 2 years Darwin was alive, he regretted everything he ever did. He wished he had never done it. He made this statement to his housekeeper. He said, "My greatest regret is to think I've opened a Pandora's box of evil upon the world." Now, think about this for a minute. How would you like to bear the thought that you were the reason millions of souls forsook God and went to hell? How'd you like to bear that burden forever? The Bible says this in 2 Timothy 4:4. They'll turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned unto fables. Well, what is a fable? What is a fable? Paul said they'll be turned to fables. A fable is a fictional story or a fictional account that is told as if it were true. And Paul said they're going to be turned to fables. Evolution is a fable. It's a fictional story that's being told as if it were true, and it's false. So here's the last 3 things I want you to remember. Science proves creation more than it does evolution. Number 2, science reveals a young Earth, a young universe, a young moon, a young solar system. It is an agent, like they say. And it takes more faith to believe in evolution than it does the Bible. I love this verse in Hebrews 11:6. But without faith it is impossible to please Him, God, for he that cometh to God must do 2 things. He must believe that He is, that He exists. That destroys most evolutionists right there. They don't even want to believe He exists. He must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of them that diligently, so the Creator exists, He's a rewarder of those that diligently seek Him. Seek the Lord while He may be found. Call ye upon Him while He is near. Very important verse. So seek Him in the morning like Mary Magdalene. Seek Him in the evening like Nicodemus. Seek Him at noon like the woman at the well in Samaria. Or seek Him at midnight like the Philippian jailer. But for all goodness that I can muster in me, seek Him. And you will find Him. Because He says He will be found of you when you shall search for me with all your heart. God is there. He's waiting for all of us. Don't let evolution sell you this cockamamie story. That's all it is. It's just false religion. It's just a false religion tonight. Evolution crumbles into a pile of stone. The Bible says in Romans chapter 1, verses 25 and 28, and even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind, who changed the truth of God into a lie and worshiped and served the creature, which is the Greek for created things, more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. Next week we deal with what is the mark of the beast. All right, let's